G'day folks. Oh, I've got that fire going again. Well into winter. Beautiful. I sort of get 2 days a week now, potentially, to work on the car. Sort of from around 9 till 3, which is really nice at the moment. But I'm waiting on bits. I've got that other axle ordered, and that's not too far away. So once that turns up, I can proceed on finishing off my brackets for the calipers, and then we sort of move forward with that, brake lines and etc. So exciting. It's very exciting. Awesome brakes. Love it. Gee, it's going to pull this car up. It's going to be incredible, the times now. Once this is all hooked up, I'll be able to run it so deep into before the corners and scrub speed. Oh, can't wait to test it. Anyway, in the meantime, while I'm waiting for my axle, I had a bit of a play around with my power steering, electric power steering pump. Got it all mounted in. I just used some 3/8 threaded rod, as you can see. There's 3 of them. The one that you can't see over the back is actually sandwiched to the floor. And that sort of bracket allows this rubber mounted, so we don't get any vibration. What a great little setup. It's awesome. Now the wiring, I've only just rigged it up to test it. I've heard that they're about 80 amps, they maximum draw on them, so I'll get an 80 amp inline fuse, a really good quality one. I don't know the name of it, but I've got one on my alternator, and I'll show you down in there. It's a cartridge. Yeah, there it is. It's a cartridge style fuse. So that's an 80 amp too. So I'll get another one the same, and what I'll do, I'll just hardwire it straight into the battery, bypass everything else. The ground straight to my bolt, which is a good ground, and there's 3 wires. Now this is where it gets interesting. There's 2 ways of doing this. At the minute I've got it just wired up, so as I flick the switch on, basically give it power, it's a slow takeoff. It sort of winds up, and I'll demonstrate that in a second. But there's another way of doing it, and you can basically have instant startup. So I'm going to wire this on a separate, 2 separate switches for the instant startup. And if I'm in the car playing around, engine going, I don't have to have the pump going, obviously, so there's no need to flick it on. So that's why I didn't want it with the ignition on a separate switch. I'll soon know about it if I've forgotten the switch when I go to drive the thing off, and it'll be tough to turn. And I can just flick the switches on. So it's good. It's noisy. Yes, it does. It is noisy, but this car is so friggin' noisy inside. It's crazy. I'm actually going to down the track. Oh God, I'm going to have to put a muffler on because it's I've got bad tinnitus. Not bad, but I've had it for a couple of years now, and I know when I drive this thing, the end of the day, the next day, it ramps it up for a few days and then settles down. So even with earplugs driving it, so try and quieten it down. But this pump feels really good. It's hard to tell at the minute while I'm sitting up on jack stands, but I think it's going to be awesome. I really feel it's going to be awesome. I'll flick it on. Yep. There we go. Now this is a slow takeoff. A lot of people have got them wired in this way, which, well, look, I can't see a problem with it, but I like the instant takeoff better. Start up, I mean. You know, we're probably 10 seconds into it now. You know, you're nearly 12-15 seconds by the time it sort of gets full power. So I've got a good electrical system. My alternator's 140 amps, so I think it'll be fine. And I've got, since I've rewired the car, I've had no issues, and I've got really good current everywhere. Everything's really bright and strong. Starter motor, it's just decent gauge wire. It makes all the difference, guys. And good grounds and fuses, relays. I've got a bunch of relays up in there. I've got a couple of spare ones. It's bloody excellent since I've done that. It's awesome. More updates when I get it wired in, guys, and I'll show you how it's sort of the quick startup version. So exciting, very happy, no leaks. That's a win. All right, guys. Well, I've talked about this. Now, this is going to be a very interesting little video. I don't know how I'm going to explain it, but I'll do my best. Originally, when I had the turbo rear mounted behind the diff, if you'd have watched a lot of my earlier videos, you know it was rear mounted, and hence the video channel name. Originally, I had a smaller turbo on it. It was about, well, at the minute, I'll let you know now, the turbo I've got, it's a GT4202 journal bearing. It's a 75mm comp housing, or comp wheel, sorry, compressor wheel, and we have an 82mm exhaust wheel, turbine wheel. The housing on the exhaust is a 1.01, so it's rated to 1,000 horse. Great spool up. It's a great turbo for that 355 and the power levels that I'm currently at, and it allows me to obviously go up in boost comfortably. It spools up beautifully. It's a great little turbo. The one I had before was it's a Japanese version. They called it Kinagawa. It's a funny name, isn't it? Kinagawa. Anyway, it was a 5862 from memory, around that. Too small. It was really ideal for the RB30, like a 6-cylinder, up to 3 litre. But with the 308 capacity 5 litre, just too small. I had a bit of success with that little turbo to start with. It was incredible, spooled up very quickly, and that was my first introduction to turbos. But once I lifted the boost up around 12 pound onwards, problems. I had a lot of problems with it. It was pushing gaskets all the time. It was getting hot, the engine. It was too much back pressure. It was on the limit. Turbo was maxed out. It was rated, they say, around 500 horsepower. So we would have had incredible hot compressed air going in. A lot of back pressure combined with that. It's not a good scenario. So ended up swapping to the GT42, and it was like night and day, guys. It was just incredible. I had so much, the thing would want to rev out, you know, it was just unreal. But over time, over a couple of years, I think it was, I started to lose power. I started to push gaskets. When I started racing the thing, after probably 12 months, the heating started to creep in. I couldn't understand why. This was on pump fuel too, mind you, with an intercooler. It was just building up heat in the engine, and I blew a few gaskets, and what was going on? Nothing was changed. Yes, I was pushing the car fairly well, but it was always on that ragged edge. Well, when I took the turbo off and wanted to move it to where it is now, guys, and I've done a video on this before, but this is what I found when I pulled it all apart. I actually had 2 of these bellows in between or either side of my muffler. And this is what it is on the inside. I've got a bellow now, the same as this, a little bit longer actually, but it's got the steel inside, like a concertina bit of steel, like you see on the ones that are on the outside. Well, that was on the inside. And so we got no risk of it ever, you know, the inside collapsing, and that's what happened. And look, guys, this is unreal what happened here, because, and I've only just, look at that. You can hardly even see through it against the light. This was creating massive back pressure, popping gaskets, You couldn't get rid of the cylinder gases out of the engine, so you would have had reversion, keeping cylinder temperatures crazy on 98 pump fuel, which is 98 octane in Australia, and I think it's 91 or 2 in the States. So we were just maxing it out and getting knock, and I lunched a couple of pistons, and I had an awful go with this. And it wasn't until I pulled it off, and that wasn't the reason why I pulled it off actually, because of the performance and the trouble I had. It was more so the weight. And I must admit, I did notice the spoolage a little bit sluggish. So to still make a bit of power through that, and that's just phenomenal. It goes to show you how much pressure those motors are pushing out to fire up those turbines. They're incredible. I mean, heat did that. It would have got glowing hot in there, and it just collapsed all that mesh. But that's just unbelievable. I'll never forget that, guys, because from that day on, I didn't know at the time. It actually only just sort of thought about this in the last sort of few months and pieced it all together. And they're the troubles that I've had. And solely not well, it is, because it was a cheap rah from you know where, but all the original setup, if that had never happened, I would have had a lot more success come engines. But saying this, guys, if this had never happened, I would have never ever probably got to this level I am now. So it's really forced me into understanding through my mistakes and hard goings that I've had. This is not the only sort of mistake that's happened. Scavenge pumps have failed, and that's caused a lot of misery. But this is the biggest one. This caused a lot of issues without even knowing. It drove fine. It idled, started. Bit slow on boost. I couldn't sort of work out what was going on. I thought the engine was maybe getting a little bit tired, but it seemed fine. And that's what it was, that. Unbelievable. So it always pays to do your homework, guys. This is not a lesson. It's a lesson for me, but it's very critical, especially when you're building up an exhaust system. If you've got to put bellows in, make sure they're not the mesh type, because they fail. They're just no good. Oh, it's unbelievable. It's incredible. All right, guys. Well, I'll sign out now. Might do a little bit of tidying up on the car. But as far as anything else at the minute, I sort of can't do too much more. I'm waiting on a little bit of wire and some fuses and that axle to move forward. But this is going to be an absolute win. It really is. I just, can't believe it. What I'm doing to the car now, guys, really seems to make a huge difference. I've got my head around it all now. And like I said with that was probably one of the biggest wins, guys. If you're running a blow-through carb, if you want, especially on E85, you've got to put boost reference power valves in it. At least one, but two is even better, because it just allows for you a beautiful lean tip in before the boost, crisp throttle response, lean cruise, and when the boost comes in, you can just deliver all the fuel that carby's designed for. You can't do it without the boost reference power valves. I've tried it. You can just get away with it on low boost, and even then it's very marginal. It's a pain because you've just got too much down low. Obviously the vacuum power valve just opens too early, and you've got too much fuel too soon. And it's a tricky one to try and tune without the boost reference power valves. All right, folks, well, that'll do for now. Have a good day, stay safe, and I'll catch you on the next one.